This is World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Carl Gruber. World Awakenings is a podcast dedicated to opening your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how they play an all-important role in our daily life. So join Carl on this enlightening experience as he interviews metaphysical and spiritual experts to discuss, debate, and delve deeply into the hows and whys of this worldwide awakening.
One of the greatest things you can do for the overall quality of your life and maintaining excellent health throughout your lifetime is exercising. And for me, my exercise of choice is running. Hi, I'm Carl Gruber, the author of the short ebook, The Jogger to Runner book. I've been a runner for over 40 years, and I've completed 78 marathons. Now, running is my passion, and that is why I wrote this short, concise, and easy-to-use ebook to help you become a runner too. So if you're now walking or just slowly jogging but have the desire to begin running, the Jogger to Runner book is now available for just $1.99. Just scan the QR code you see on the screen now to get your copy. You don't have to run a marathon or even race, just run for the joy of it and run for a better quality of life. That's the Jogger to Runner book. Get your copy today. This is the show World Awakenings, a fast track to enlightenment. I am your host, Carl Gruber. Now, since 2018, we've been taking deep dives into all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening with some of the world's greatest teachers, authors, experts, and masters, and even some ascended masters. So hang on to your seat as we meet yet another incredible guest who will blow open your heart and mind in ways you never imagined were possible. This is World Awakenings. So today we meet with South Africa's Wenu Solsana. Although she was born in Argentina, she considers herself a citizen of the world, now residing in South Africa. A longtime entrepreneur, things changed upon a personal tragedy in her life that led to an amazing spiritual and metaphysical awakening and understanding. Now she is founder of a website called Orykl.com, that is ORYKL.com, which she created as a place where you can connect and work with channelers from around the world. Now, a channeler is, of course, a human individual through which beings from higher dimensions and reality speak, teach, and communicate through. Now, if you've been a regular viewer or listener of the show, you know we've had some numerous channels on this show. So now let's meet with Wenu Solsana. Hey, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, I appreciate it, especially since where I'm at in the States, it's the middle of the afternoon, and you're in South Africa, where it's, I think, 7 hours ahead of us. So, thank you. But I'm really fascinated with your story and what you do, Wenu. From what I've read and heard about your life, you've lived in a number of places in the world, and you've been a long-time entrepreneur. As far as I can tell, you didn't grow up with any spiritual experiences or contact with other beings. Is that correct, or am I wrong on that?
Yeah, no, you are correct. In fact, I come from a not very religious or spiritual family at all. We never went to church except for Christmas because, the extended family would go. I was baptized and I did do my first communion, actually. So I had a good understanding of religion, but you don't seek if you don't really feel the need to, right? I was just going about my life, everything was fine. I wasn't asking those super deep questions, and it's often a tragedy, like you said, that starts the ball rolling, I guess.
Well, I know this is deeply personal, but if you wouldn't mind telling us, can you relate to what happened with this tragedy? I think it involved your brother and what it led to in your own life.
Yeah. So, well, basically in 2009, I got a call from my brother's fiance, and she was sobbing. She actually couldn't get the words out. And eventually she told me that my brother had died. And immediately after she told me, the conversation cut off. This was on Skype and the reception was bad. And I thought I didn't hear her well. I panicked. I absolutely panicked. And, you know, we reconnected and she said the same words. And yeah, so he died in an airplane accident that he was flying. And you know, was the only victim. So when it's a shock like that, when it's an accident, it's really shocking. And we were so close with my brother. My whole family was very close. And you know, immediately I started to ask, where is he? Do we have a soul? And if we have a soul, where does it go? And can he hear me? And really, what happens when you die? And, you know, and who are we, I guess? And that really was the opening of a very big spiritual door for me that I sort of dove really, you know, head first into. And I started reading lots of books on life after death, you know, near-death experiences. I never, funny enough, felt like I wanted to connect with him through a medium, although now I speak to him all the time. But yeah, it was just more search as to what happens. And obviously I was very interested in the subject. So I started reading all kinds of books, and they really from all ranges, right? From, you know, the Eckhart Tolles to the Deepak Chopras to everything in between, and lots of courses. And yeah, you know, time went on, and along that journey, I got introduced to channeling. And, you know, the first time I heard about channeling, somebody said to me, it was Bashar, and a lot of people know Bashar, is quite a famous channeler. Somebody said to me, this guy channels an alien. And I said, what are you talking about? You know, not that I didn't believe aliens didn't exist, but, you know, I had never heard of somebody channeling an alien. And these friends, you know, I hold in high regard and I trust them. And they're like, no, I'm telling you, this is true stuff. And so, yeah, I went and I checked out Bashar, and I was just amazed at the information coming through. I was amazed at how this could happen, first of all. And, you know, Daryl Anka, who's the channeler, he explains how, you know, he raises his vibration and he locks in with the being that he channels. And, you know, he explains the whole sort of more scientific side of things. So that was pretty incredible. I never heard about anything like that. And, but also the information that was coming through, like everything really resonated true to me. I would hear something and I'd be like, yes, you know, like, but yes, that just logically it makes sense. In my heart, it makes sense. It was almost like a knowing that I just knew that these things were true. And yeah, and so I was like, well, this is amazing. Plus, you know, some of the information I had not heard before through these books or anything, or it was maybe like described in a different way. And yeah, so I started just listening to a lot of channel stuff, especially from Bashar and from Abraham Hicks. And then what happened was that I've always been an entrepreneur. So I've had different businesses, and I'm a logical person. And for me, business makes sense. You know, it's just most of life for me, it can be explained logically. And anyway, I had an outdoor cinema here in Cape Town, and I was thinking about selling it. And by this stage, I had done a few businesses, and I just knew that the next business I was going to do had to be to help in some sort of global scale. I mean, that was my wish. Because I had made sort of enough money, you know, I didn't have that need for like, okay, now for money. Of course, we all want money, but my drive did not change to like, okay, what else is there, right? And I really love animals, so I thought maybe I would do something with animals. But then I thought, how can I do animals like in a global scale? So I had basically really put out the intention. I wasn't ready to sell the Galileo, I mean, my cinema here, because it just wasn't the time. But I was doing a lot of meditation, and I still do. And I was just sitting one night in meditation, and just this idea to do this platform just came to me in a sort of download. I mean, the name, the logo, the whole idea. And I had already been doing like some automatic writing by then, which is just, it's a form of channeling, you can say, you know, where for me, I type, you can write, but for me, because I type quite fast on my computer, and I would just close my eyes, and I would really get the urge to write, and I'd be like, no, maybe that's just still me, you know, and eventually I would get like a serious urge, like, no, write. Like, okay. And all the messages coming through were very loving of the style of channeling. Anyway, but on this night, I just got this download and I just typed it all out. And, you know, this was now like 5 years ago. So since then, I've been doing more research on channeling because it's all part of what I'm doing now. But we really only launched this platform in November 2023. So, you know, I've been doing research, and then for the last year and a half, more or less, I've been working on it sort of full time. So yeah, that's kind of the story of how Oracle came to be.
Well, that's interesting. So, from your grief of losing your brother in a plane crash, you found channeling. So, channeling obviously was a wonderful way for you to release this grief through your seeking of understanding of where your brother went and where we all go after we leave this body.
Well, yeah, and I also think that we do come here with certain soul contracts, and I think that I certainly wholeheartedly believe that this is my purpose for coming to live this life, is really to do this platform, because we're at the very tip of the iceberg. This is going to grow into something really beautiful. But for me to have started this company, I really needed a trigger and I needed a journey, you know. So, like Steve Jobs said, you can always connect the dots looking backwards. So that all had to happen. And, you know, my brother's passing was also really something that we both agreed we would do in this lifetime, that he would give me that initiation, that motivation. And for me, you know, the more that I use his death, or the more I get out of his death, like then his death wouldn't have been in vain. So if I make this beautiful platform that helps, you know, hopefully millions of people, then wow, his death would have been the birth of something, you know, of that. So, you know, everything is really interconnected, and, you know, everything just affects everything else, right? So yeah, and also my understanding, you know, of him, and, you know, I really got so much clarity and so much peace and so much reassurance, love through this process, that of course even now I still miss my brother. I don't think I'll ever like stop missing him, but it's like I have gotten so much out of it too, and I'm grateful for the entire experience. Although I would still love to have him here, I'm grateful, and I feel him even now as I speak of him, you know, quite overwhelmingly. Like I feel him, and it's almost like I feel him holding my hand, you know. I even get emotional about it, but I know he's here, and that's a beautiful thing to know, and a beautiful thing to feel, you know, and it's a beautiful thing for me to be able to give other people, because although we don't do mediumship, and maybe I'd like to explain the difference between, you know, mediumship and channeling and psychics. We explain, you know, to people who we really are and what this is, and that gives people a lot of peace and a lot of reassurance, and just a lot of empowerment, I guess, as well.
Well, I think that's a beautiful way of look at it. That you and your brother had soul contracts and just came in with an agreement for this particular arrangement in this lifetime, and I'm sure that's the truth. Now, you just started kind of to touch on this, but can you define exactly what is channeling? I mean, who are these people that these spirit beings and extraterrestrial beings come through? What exactly is it?
Yeah. So look, it sounds crazy. You know, I'm a normal person, and I would have to say that if I heard this, I don't know, 10 years ago, when this was like not in my radar at all, I don't know what I would have thought about it. But I would say that if you're listening to this, or whoever's listening to this, like, have an open mind, right? That's really quite important. Now, it turns out that, at least in my belief, right, that just because we can't see something or touch and feel it or, sense it with one of our five senses, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And I mean, science has proven this with many a thing. I mean, the human eye can only see whatever small percentage of the color spectrum. And, the human ear can only hear a tiny amount of noise in the whole, the wavelengths. I don't even know the terminology. But in the same manner, there's so many things that exist that we just can't see, perceive, and touch, but it doesn't mean that they don't exist. And so there is a enormous spirit world that is out there that we can tap into, that most of us don't tap into, that most of us have no idea even exists, but it doesn't mean that it's not there. Now, in that spirit world, let's call it, there's anything that's really not physical, right? And there's many different dimensions. We are in this dimension, this reality, in this third dimension, but there's many others. And so channelers are able to raise their vibration to match that of a being or an energy field or a collective energy that is of a higher vibration. So channelers are able to raise their vibration. This being often comes down as well, and it's somewhere in the middle. They lock, and it's like a telepathic communication. It's a knowing. It's just there. In fact, what happens is that the channeler puts their personality aside, their ego aside, to allow the entity to just flow through them. So the entity will use their vocal cords and maybe their body to do certain movements, but the channeler, let's say in inverted commas, the more their personality is totally aside. Many channelers don't remember what was said, they come back to. It's not to say that they're better than those that do remember, by the way, just want to say that. But it's an incredible opportunity for us to connect with these spiritual beings that are of high vibration, that are here and now, all the time, that we just can't tap into it easily ourselves. But once again, we can all do it. But like with everything, it takes some practice and some discipline. And, some people are a little bit more naturally inclined to be able to do this.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, very good explanation on that. Now, one thing, your website states that channeling is a form of communication from the spirit world, but many channels claim that they have beings from different galaxies and universes come through them. Like you said, your friends said, well, this guy channels an alien. Now, these beings are from different planets and dimensions. How can they be classified to be from the spirit world? I mean, it seems to me, I get confused.
Well, they're not. So just because they are aliens, it doesn't mean that they're physical. And this is just maybe preempt that these are very difficult concepts for us to understand. Like, our human brain is conditioned and it is part of this physical world. So we want to understand everything with physics, with time, space, reality. And these are concepts that are beyond that. So we have to understand that first is consciousness. And consciousness births physical reality. Now, if physical reality doesn't exist, it doesn't mean that consciousness doesn't exist. In fact, it does. Just physical reality is a byproduct of that. Now, if you are looking at it from the other angle, from the scientific approach, let's call it, and you believe that physical reality is all there is, and consciousness is a byproduct of that, well, once physical reality is not there anymore, then consciousness is not there anymore. But it doesn't work that way. And so these beings, whether they are whether they're aliens or the right word is really extra dimensional beings. But aliens, extraterrestrials, or extra dimensional beings are kind of classified all together. Whether it's those guys or an ascended masters like Jesus, or your higher self, or your angels, your spirit guides, your archangels, these are all beings that are not part of the physical world. So when somebody says, yeah, how come we can get aliens here? Because, the closest star is like, I don't know how many million of light years away. It's impossible, even if they were able to. Well, it doesn't work that it's not physical. Now they can densify themselves to appear physical, and that's how they can appear and disappear, or appear here and appear there. They can densify, but we need to look beyond physicality. And this is, there's often a conflict, with science and this, because we need to prove it and we want to prove it. And that's fine. And, we are going to get to prove it because there's explanations for all of this, but we need to look beyond this physical world. And so these extra dimensional beings exist in, and I'm not the best person to explain this, by the way, but they exist in different dimensions, basically. And it's almost like having a radio dial or TV, and or like the TV, you're clicking through all these different channels, and you get to the Earth channel, and now you experience everything that the Earth has to experience, but you click on another channel and you're going to experience something else. These are different dimensions, and so they do exist. They exist in different dimensions. They can become, not all, but some can become physical. Very many of them are not physical. We experience them more in our dreams or in meditative states or through this connection. They are light beings. Remember, we are also, as human beings, also not physical beings. We are physical beings now, or this experience that I'm having of physicality, but part of me is not physical. Part of me is residing also in that dimension. I am also, if you think about, for example, the sun, and the center of the sun being pure love, or God, whatever you want to call it. And now as you look out into the rays of the sun, I might be here, having this experience, and this is physicality right here, but I can move up that ray of the sun and get closer to God, or pure love, or pure potential. So I'm just having this experience, but I'm the whole ray of the sun, you know what I mean? I'm not just this, I've got a soul, I'm connected to source. And so I could be having all these different experiences. Indeed, I am having all these different experiences, but this physical me is just blinded to that. And anyway, these beings reside in everywhere, quite frankly. Maybe not the best way to explain it, I don't know. But as I said, they're very difficult concepts, and our mind is very limited in its understanding.
Well, actually, that was a very good explanation, and I appreciate it. We live in a world, of course, that lives by the belief that I'll see it, I'll believe it when I see it. When in truth, what we're talking about is I'll see it when I believe it. So, no, wait, is that right? I'll believe that's it. I get it mixed up, but you understand what I'm talking about, I hope. But no, that was a very good explanation. Now, how about you? Do you channel yourself?
Not like the channelers on Oracle, because the channelers on Oracle really, first, it's for most people, it's not a matter of just channeling. It takes really a lot of practice and dedication, and I don't have the dedication or the inclination. But again, some people are more natural at it. But the channels that we have on Oracle are really connecting to another entity that is not themselves, although some do connect to their higher self. And they're really bringing through information as very clear vessels of that information, and themselves, they're not there in that connection. I could say that I channel, we all channel, just to confuse the matter more. We all channel because we're all connected to our higher self. We all are. And so when you're in a state of flow, let's just say you are, maybe doing this painting, you're absolutely lost in the painting, and you don't even think, you're not even thinking, you're just doing, that's a kind of channeling. Or people that are writers that also have this amazing works of art, of writing, they just channel that. I think Mozart used to play just without even anything, right? He would just play. So he was also channeling, himself. So I like to get into the state as much as possible, which I consider just more living in the flow and listening to my heart as much as possible, because I know that if I do that, everything just becomes easier and coincidences happen and it's just more fun. I tend to do things that I love. And so I try and do that. And what happens when I get into that state, which is usually in the evenings at home and in meditation, and I just relax a little bit, then some brilliant ideas come through, like the idea of Oracle and others. It's quite frankly, I can do it almost whenever I set the intention. I just will sit here in meditation. I just really just open up my heart and put my mind aside, and I ask for creativity. Particularly, I ask for ideas, I ask for solutions. So we also have to ask. It just works better that way. And then yes, I might write something amazing that I wouldn't have thought of otherwise. So in that sense, you could say.
Well, and that is also a good point too. I think that artists, especially, understand that we all channel in some way, shape, or form. Musicians, painters, whatever. I know when I write, I'll sit down, I'll have a blank page, and I just have an intention to write, and all of a sudden it's just bloop, write this down, and however many pages come out, and I look back at it and I go, I wrote that. It's like,
there you go. Exactly it. And the more you practice, just the better it gets.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to your website, oracle.com, ORYKL. I love that spelling. Why create a place where someone can find a legitimate channel all in one place? What was your purpose behind that?
Yes. Well, as I said, I really love the messages that come through. I think they're very empowering. They teach us about who we truly are. They teach us the nature of reality, how to manifest the things that we really want. And it's done in a very personal way, because some of this information we may have heard before, but it's different when it's told to the collective than when it's told to you. And, it uses very particular cases about your life, or it answers very specific questions that you have about your life, your problem. So I like it. I like all of that. I think it's like the best therapy session that you can have, because not only is it like amazing therapy, but it's also information that you can't get anywhere else. Because in a channeling session, the channeler will be connecting to your higher self, and your higher self sees the bigger picture. They see everything. It sees your past life, your future lives, your purpose in this life, the reason that all these obstacles came into your life. So those are things that you can't necessarily get out of a therapy session or in your own, I don't know, outward digging for the answers. And so I love that. But at the same time, it's an industry that can lend itself to, I guess, a lot of, what's the word, not charlatans, but not the real deal. I don't know. It can lend itself. Because again, we don't have proof, we don't have something that's measurable. And so I thought it's not so much that I don't trust people out there doing it, is that I wanted to give people the trust that these channelers at least are the real deal. And I think that's very important. And for us, for Oracle, to have real channelers is like the most important thing, and I'm putting my name and myself out there and sort of signing my name on these people, because I've personally vetted everybody and I know them personally. And so I wanted to make sure that people could go somewhere that they could trust, that they didn't have to think twice about it. They just knew that these people, were like the real deal, and they're like the best in the game too, because by the way, not everybody, there's many channelers that are professional channels that I haven't accepted just because they're just not up to like a certain standard. And that, by the way, is related to how clear the channel is, because there's always sometimes a little bit of like that person in the co-creation of the channeling. Anyway, so I thought those two things would be great. And what we're doing now with the website is really, as I said before, the tip of the iceberg. We want to teach people how to channel. So we're as we speak, like developing these really cool channeling courses to teach people how to channel their higher selves first and to trust their intuition, that information that comes through, which is really cool because it's a really cool way to live. And then how to channel other beings, like, you know, the channels that we have, and then we'll have advanced channeling courses on how to improve your channeling. But also we want to sell some products related to channeling and, you know, movies, and quite frankly, anything and everything related to channeling, as well as the community. So we're launching that later this year. We want to get people connected with each other, practicing with each other if they want to really get into this. But, you know, I think that the most interesting thing about channeling overall is just the messages that come through. So when you go to a session, you know, and you receive this information, I'm pretty sure that you will resonate with it. And that's really the most important. It's not so important how, you know, where it's coming from. It's like the truth of what's said, and it's very empowering. We are the creators of our own reality, and that's just a fact, you know.
Well, you kind of beat me to my question. I was going to ask, you know, so what exactly does a channel do for a person that's consulting them? But you answered that. It's a form of therapy that is coming from a being that is sitting high above what I call battleground Earth, you know, in an objective eye, and can see and help. And so, yeah, that was, again, an excellent description of that. You know, I'm curious about this. You know, as I mentioned, I've had numerous channels on this show, and everyone has just been beautiful and loving and peaceful and offering nothing but good intent for us to live a happier, healthier, beautiful life. Now, I had this question pop up when I was thinking of things to talk to you about. Are all channeled beings good? Are there any of these channeled beings who you might consider evil or ill intent?
So I think it can be so. The thing with that is that, you know, who we really are at the core is love, you know, is light, is truth. And so for that to happen, it almost needs to be against your will, because the inner you doesn't want to do that. You know, you might have a curiosity about it, or maybe you are not aligned or fearful, you know, a lot of fear. So it's usually attracted by fear. You know, when we're fearful, we're already vibrating lower. Now, as we vibrate lower, we attract lower vibrating energies. And so if you keep yourself in a good state, in a positive state, in a loving state, it cannot happen. You know, you at some level, you have to consent to that. Or let me put it this way, at some level, you need to match that vibration. And so at some level, you need to lower your vibration in order to lock in with that lower vibrating entity. And so you need to either be in fear or anxious or something like that. And those people don't tend to want to chat, you know, they're like busy with other problems. You know, they're not really channeling. So, and you don't want to channel something negative. So it's very difficult for that. So they would have to almost, you know, I don't know, in a way, sort of hijack you, if I might say it that way. But it doesn't happen. It's not really channeling in that case. You will just have bad things happen to you, but you wouldn't call it channeling, you know? So, you know, I have never felt fearful, but I'm generally a pretty confident person, and I know that I'm of the light. But I know, because I've also had a good life, I think. So I've noticed that people that have had a pretty hard life, they tend to, and now you know, they've developed as human beings, and they've like understood, you know, a lot of things, and they've grown, and they're doing better now, but they tend to protect themselves every time, you know, because they've had bad experiences. And so when they go even meditation or channeling, they're like, make sure to protect yourself, you know. And I've never told myself, oh, make sure I need to protect myself, because I haven't had that experience. So But it's always a good idea to protect yourself, because it's really very simple. You just envision something around you, like it could be just a white light or a white and purple light, and you just say only good things and loving things can come inside the space. It doesn't matter how you say it, by the way, because some people get very stuck with sort of one way of doing it. Just as long as that you say to yourself, I'm safe, I'm in this bubble of love and safety, and nothing bad can come in, then nothing bad can come in, because it's your will and you don't allow it. And just so that's all it takes. So if anybody ever has fear, that's really all it takes, is you just telling yourself that you're safe.
I think you nailed it. You really nailed it, because exactly that. While I've never had an experience of any negative energy coming through a channel being talking to me, if a person is in a lower vibrating place of fear, and exactly that, you said it earlier, we create our own reality. And if they decide to try to connect with a channel and they're already in a low vibrating, negative, dark place, then they'll probably draw an entity or a being, from that realm. And so, yeah, you have to be careful with that yourself and pay attention to where you're vibrating. Now, one of my most popular guests is trance channel Carol Collins. She's been on my show 3 times. She channels the Yeshua Collective. I've spent an entire workshop weekend with her and some other people where Carol was literally a channel for 95% for 3 straight days. And, I'm sitting there thinking I'm talking to Carol, and no, this is Yeshua, and she's a true trance channel where the person's personality moves out of the way, and the spirit being comes through. Now, she tells me that if a channel is not a trance channel, such as a clairvoyant, then the chances of the message coming through them of being incorrect goes up dramatically, because of the channeler's own personality and the beliefs get in the way. Do you have any comments on this?
Well, I kind of disagree in terms of drastically, but I would say that yes, it can be different where the channeler's personality can get in the way. So let me maybe just briefly explain that you get a conscious channeler and a trance channeler. And then within the trance channeling, you get a deep trance channeler or a light trance channeler. Now, the difference between the conscious and the trance channeler is that the trance channeler will allow the entity to speak through them. So the entity will say, we are here. Usually they say we, because again, there's no individualization at that stage. So there's usually a collective, even if it's an individual, often they will refer as a collective. But let's not get too complicated. So they will say, we are here. How can we assist? And from our point of view, so the channeler's personality is really not there at all. With the conscious channeler, the person will be there, and they will say, they're telling me to say this, they're saying that, they're saying that. Now, you can be a conscious channeler, but still very clear in that what you hear, you transmit. You don't add your flavor to it. They're saying this, they're saying that. And if you're a very clear conscious channeler, then I would say it's almost the same as being a trance channeler. The problem is that it's not so easy to be a conscious, clear channel. This is not my personal opinion, okay? And so part of you in that translation, okay, they're showing me, so they're telling me this, a part of you can get mixed in the message. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, believe it or not, some people prefer that, because sometimes these concepts can be quite complex. Even sometimes I struggle to, explain and so for the channeler to kind of say it in layman's terms, or to kind of explain it from their human perspective as well as theirs, can be an advantage, depending on what is being talked about and depending on the receiver, depending on the client. Sometimes they do like that. And then, yeah, so that's where I would say there's pros and cons. But for the most part, my personal biases, I quite like it if it's a trance channel, especially if it's a deep trance channeler, because again, the difference between light trance and deep trance is that the deep trance usually doesn't remember what was said. And the light trance will generally recall. Sometimes they recall a little bit, sometimes everything. But in essence, they're the same. It's just that you feel like you get more of a I don't know, a weird or like a, I don't know what you call it, but a very strange and unique experience when it's a deep trance channeler. But with good channels, it should be the same.
Well, I saw on your website, oracle.com, that you really are take time to qualify these channelers to be on your show. I think I saw your little video where you value honesty with these people quite a bit. And from what I saw, I only looked through a partial roster of your channelers, and most of them said trance channeler on there too.
Yeah. And I think that's also because it is easier to be a trance channeler than a conscious channeler. As a conscious channeler, as I said, you're sort of there as well. I don't know, there's so many. We really have a database of so many. We're actually just now not even reaching out anymore. They're coming to us, and we vet them slowly. And just to say on the vetting process, I've now had so many channeling sessions. It's become pretty quick and easy for me as well, because like anything, you get good at what you do over and over and over. So I can tell pretty quickly when I'm in a channeling session, how clear and clean of a channel it is, and maybe how not.
Well, we are speaking to Winu Solsana from South Africa. Well, she's a global person, and she is the founder of Oracle.com, which is a collective of channels where you can come and book an appointment with an individual channeler to work with them. Why do some of these, this is a big question for me. Why do these spiritual beings, ascended masters and teachers and beings from different parts of the galaxy and universe, why do they have any reason to come and help us humans here on Earth?
So what I have heard from many channeling sessions is that us as human beings, we're really going through a massive transformation right now. And we are understanding ourselves more and more and more, to the point where we're understanding what this really is about, what this physical reality is, what this life is. And in that understanding, we are evolving, and we are evolving into also higher vibrating beings. Our consciousness is expanding, our awareness is expanding, and that can be quite confusing, right, for many of us. And they're here really just assisting us and helping us through this transition, because there's a lot of, in order for us to go through this process, there's also the other side, because there's a lot of anxiety and craziness happening in the world too, which sparks the spiritual awakening. It's like myself, I had to have this tragedy for me to start the search. And so a lot of things are going down right now that are just so crazy. Everything from like the fact that there's just like so much technology and people don't have time. And then there's these wars, and, there's just, we're overwhelmed, right? And we are at the same time birthing from that overwhelm, and that just like there's just too much of everything. We're birthing this spiritual search for like, hey, there's got to be something more. This just can't be it, right? And anyway, it's a very confusing time. I think it's a very exciting time as well. There's and they're just here assisting us through it all, because they do see the bigger picture, they do understand, and they're just helping us process it and get through it. And we will, by the way, we are going to make it. And they're also part of, yes, we're going to make it. I mean, every single channeler says so, and that, it also resonates true to me. Yeah.
It's great. I feel like a rock song should come in. We're going to make it. I find it really interesting, and I'm sure you do too, that how the voice and the facial expressions of many of these channelers change, some of them dramatically, when the being coming through them does, like I interviewed one of the more famous channelers a couple years ago, Lazarus, who comes through Jacques Purcell, and he has kind of a Scottish accent, and which is interesting. But I have also noticed that the longer that a person channels in a particular collective or individual, they start to assimilate more and more back to the human's normal voice, and things aren't quite as dramatic. I've seen this over and over.
I can't say I have seen it that much, but I also haven't followed one channeler over a long period of time, except for Bashar and Abraham Hicks. So it's possible,
Even Esther Hicks, if you go back to her earlier stuff, and now it's basically just like Esther, talking with the wisdom, knowledge.
Yeah. I think it's also what I've heard from channelers is that they become so used to the energy. So it's not just the human that becomes used to the entities, also the entity, becoming used to the human. And so there is a molding there, and I guess that's part of it.
Yeah, it's just so interesting, the whole thing. And wow, I'll tell you, Wenu, I really appreciate you being here. I mean, this is just what you're doing is bringing this collective of beautiful channelers to the world. And what is the best way for people to find out more about you, connect you? What is your website again?
Sure, it's Oracle, ORYKL.com, and on there we also have links to all our social media. So it's really nice to follow us. There's a lot of stuff on Instagram and Facebook about these channel messages, videos from the channelers as well. There's some of my videos on there. There's a bit of everything. So yeah, you can visit those, and just know that in a few months we'll be launching courses, as I said, memberships, it's going to be products. So all things channeling will be on oracle.com.
And I just want to verify what you said, where these beings are coming down to help us, because humankind is going through a huge transition. I've had many of my guests say, yes, humankind is now going through an ascension into the 5D and the 6D and even beyond. And actually, it's a pretty cool time to be alive, despite all the craziness and wackiness we see, So.
It is very cool. And, one of my purposes is that since I am alive right now, and since we are going through this massive transformation, I want to be part of that change. I want to look back and say, well, thanks to me, I was a contributor to this new earth. And yes, like you said, this 5D new earth that we're moving towards. And really what 5D is just the understanding that we are all one. We are all one. We're just one consciousness having different experiences, and the point is really just to have a good time. We were talking earlier about having fun. This is very important. Very important. We really came here to enjoy this experience and everything it offers, so whatever brings you pleasure, whatever brings you joy, whatever brings you fun in your life, do it. This is just why you're here. There's nothing to do, or there's nothing to really that you have to do, except just follow your bliss. That's the main message.
And what you just said about we're all one, I mean, boy, there's some deep spiritual ramifications there. We could do another whole show on that, just that. But Wenu Sulsana, thank you. Namaste for being on World Awakenings. I'm so grateful.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful to talk to you. Thank you.
This has been another episode of World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with host Karl Gruber, a certified Law of Attraction life coach. We welcome you to tune in to each and every episode of World Awakenings as we open your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to the truth of all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how much they play an all-important role in our moment-to-moment daily life. Much love and light to you, my friend, and thank you for tuning into World Awakenings.